All right, folks, it's 10 o'clock and I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. I see Sherry's hand is there and Commissioner Shannon is there as well. So we have a quorum. We'll go ahead and go into 2.0, which is additions and revisions to the agenda. Do you guys have any?
I do not have anything.
Okay, I have just the one, which I had emailed you to about under consent agenda. I would like to add, consider approval of memorandum of understanding between the cities and counties of Oregon regarding allocation of potential opioid settlement funds. It's a mouthful. So if there's no objections to that, I will add that to the consent agenda. Okay, let's move on to 3.0, which is correspondence and public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair or just unmute. That's easiest. And give your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. So folks who are signing in via Zoom, it's, if you recall from all of our Zoom meetings, it's the lower left-hand side. If you're calling in, it's star 6 to unmute yourself. And I always remind folks that we are very informal. So as we go through the agenda, if there's any people want to jump in as we go, we're open to that as well. Under correspondence.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Are you guys going to discuss Gilliam County Fire Services in the ordinance, or is that during a court report?
Oh, I'll probably bring it up as a update on where we are.
Okay, and the timeline too, so we can make sure that the city's timelines match up with the courts, so we can get this done.
Yes.
Okay.
We talked to our attorney on Monday, so I have an update on that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just make a note though so I don't forget it. Okay, so under correspondence, we have a report from the City of Condon regarding the infrastructure grant. So Catherine sent over a summary. This is the $3 million grant that was awarded back in 2012 for all the infrastructure upgrades that the city has been working on, the water lines, et cetera, et cetera. So Catherine's report is in here, as well as where all the funds went. So anybody who's interested in seeing that, that is part of the court packet on the Gilliam County website. So you can check out that. And then the other thing is we got a really nice thank you note from Leilani. Is it Weezer? Is that? Yep. Okay, good. I'm glad I said it right. Just wanting to thank, and I think she was placed with you, wasn't she, Kaylin? She was placed with the Condon Chamber. So she just wrote, "Dear Gilliam County, I want to thank you for this amazing job experience. I also want to thank you for the transportation you guys provided. It is very much appreciated." So I suspect she might be a 4-H'er too, because our kids know how to write thank you notes. So anyway, those are under correspondence for anybody who wants to check them out. They, again, are on the Gilliam County website. With that, let's go into consent agenda. Questions on it?
I guess I had a question on the last item when it went into treatment, drug treatment, and the stuff that Tina does. Do we use CCP for the counseling and all that, or do you know?
I don't know. I assume so, but I don't know that for sure. It
was kind of vague in where you go for treatment or how that's handled through our county, what treatment facilities we use, and I just was curious. I have a lot of involvement in that, so it's kind of a hot spot for me.
Yeah, I don't know the details on that one.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I have Tina here right now. What was that question again, Pat?
I was just wondering who we use or how do we use treatment centers, what from Gilliam County, what do we do there? Does that go through CCP, or what is the process for actually getting people into treatment?
Yes, we do use community counseling solutions.
Okay, that's what I figured. All right.
They're the only agency available to us in the county. Okay.
That's what I figured.
Any other questions?
I move we accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of August 18th, 2021 regular meeting minutes, consider approval of August 18th, 2021 executive session minutes, consider approval of August 18th, 2021 Port of Arlington joint session minutes, consider appointments to the Board of Property Tax Appeals, or BOPTA, chairperson's pool and non-office holding pool. Consider approval of intergovernmental agreement with Sherman County qualifying Gilliam County tax assessor as an independent appraiser for Board of Property Tax Appeals, BOPTA. Consider approval of intergovernmental agreement with Morrow County qualifying Gilliam County tax assessor as an independent appraiser for Board of Property Tax Appeals, BOPTA. Consider approval of Conica Minolta Biz Hub copier maintenance agreement with Bonds Printing. Consider approval of Helion Services contract for Assessor's Office or CATS software program. Consider approval of IGA with Port of Arlington for Willow Creek Project intergovernmental agreement restructuring. Consider approval of letter of support for Condon Chamber of Commerce Rural Opportunity Initiative grant application. Consider approval of intergovernmental agreement number 6160 with the State of Oregon Department of Corrections. Consider approval of 2021 through 2023 M57 supplemental funds for drug addicted persons agreement, and consider approval of memorandum of understanding between the cities and counties of Oregon regarding allocation of potential opioid settlement funds. Wow. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Wow. That was it. That was a big one. Okay, let's move on. We don't have any unfinished business, so we will go right into 6.1, which is discussion on FEMA floodplain mapping. And Chris, you're up. Chris Fitz.
Well, I'm going to blame this on Catherine, and she's going to help me with this. So back on August 31st, we had a conference call with FEMA, and we pretty much told them that we are really wanting to pursue a countywide risk mapping, assessment, and planning project with FEMA Region 10. And our floodplain maps, I think, are dated 1981, I think is the last time we had any floodplain mapping done. So the City of Condon has really been wanting to get this project done. There's lots of areas that have changed, and we also are able to maybe take advantage of the NRCS 2020 LIDAR in later this year or even early of next year. So in the meeting we had, they asked us, because Catherine was the one that actually put the effort forward to try and really get them to come in and do it for the City of Condon. They wanted to know if we wanted to do it countywide, and or other cities involved in Gilliam County would want to be involved as well. So I said, I'm going to go to county court first, talk to Gilliam County about it. Then I've also been in contact with Jeff Bufton from the City of Arlington. I'm going to their City Council meeting October 6th, and I made contact with Shannon Hill, the mayor of Lone Rock, and we'll be going to their City Council meeting on October 11th. There is no cost. The word free is great. And Catherine, I'm going to let you put, I don't know what else to say.
So what, do they just need a yes or no from us, or do they actually need resources from us or anything?
I asked them if they needed letters of support from the counties and or cities, and they pretty much said no, which is kind of weird because, you know, when I've dealt with Oregon Emergency Management into FEMA before, we were always having to do letters of support and stuff like that, but they pretty much said no. It didn't matter to them. And so I'm like, okay. So Catherine, you can add anything you want.
So I just wanted to let the county court know why the city of Condon kind of wanted to start this process in the first place. Is what we have found out is that our maps have never, our FEMA maps, which the latest ones were done in 1984, we don't have any engineered data of how they made those floodplains. So what we've been running up against is that we have areas that we don't think necessarily, we're thinking it kind of stymies development when we're not sure where the floodplain is, because our floodplain ordinance says that basically if on our map, any part of the lot that you're building on, you have to follow the floodplain ordinance, which costs probably about 3,000 to 5,000 extra in development if you're going to do it on that. So our intent was, and has been for the last couple of years, is to try and engage FEMA to finally redo the maps with the city of Condon. So when we met with them, they did want to meet with Gilliam County Emergency. We also had Herb Winters from Gilliam County Soil and Water Conservation, because the LIDAR is a mapping tool that they use. I was not familiar with it, and I had actually had this discussion with Representative Cliff Bentz to see if we could get FEMA involved. And the LIDAR is the mapping. I think they fly over and they do an extensive mapping of where the water is and what the water tables are. Don't understand it all, but that is going to all be completed by NCR, Natural Resources and Soil and Water Conservation by the end of this year. So, but what the thing with FEMA is, so when they came in, they said, well, do we want to do just Condon? And Chris was on the line, and I'm like, if we're going to do Condon, we need to see if we might as well just do the whole county at the same point. So Chris said that she talked with Mayor Buffton, and we'll move forward on that. This is going to be a slow process. Even though they do not want any money, they have us supposedly in the queue to do this project. We will start the project, I think, with a kickoff next month, just to get the stakeholders, basically the cities, the counties together to see what we're doing. And then the original tentative engineering, or it's probably the base engineering, is going to start, and that's going to take 18 to 24 months to do, even though the LIDAR is already done. Then to actually get a new floodplain map, they're saying the timeline is up to 5 years before we will actually receive a new map. So it's going to be a long, drawn out process. But Jeff Schott has talked to me before about this, and he thought that possibly the original maps were done from taking aerial photographs of the 1964 flood in Condon and trying to determine where those lines were. We can't find any aerials, so I'm not sure of how accurate that is. Especially they didn't do any on the ground engineering. And they're also doing work in Morrow County and in Sherman County. And so they say we've hit the good spot that they can put us on their list, they can start the project. And yes, at this point, there's nothing going to cost any of the entities to move forward.
I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't be completely on board. I know that specifically our industrial park at Shetler, Jeff has talked to, I know, me before, and I think maybe you as well, Sherry, about needing that to be remapped because they've done some things to that to try to mitigate flooding that's not captured on the map. And so right off the top of my head, I can already think potentially of one benefit to the county, not even counting the cities having more development ready land. So I don't know why we wouldn't welcome it. Commissioners, what do you think?
I agree 100%.
Yeah, we're on board.
I was in the conversation with Cliff too, and that startup, that was all new to me that was going on. So yeah, it's something I think, and even if it takes a long time, we need to get started.
So STAR 2 is the contractors that FEMA uses. And STAR 2 actually started a program over in Sherman County back in November 2018. And Jeff Schott had sent me a copy of the the letter that Sean Payne had sent out to landowners over there in 2018. I questioned they do run into sometimes landowners who will not let them on their property if they're out there doing, on boots to the ground type of situation. But they said that most of the time they don't even have to touch the landowner's property. They can normally do it from satellite imagery if they have to. So I think when it gets closer down the road to them actually being out here and wanting to go to some areas, I can send out a letter to our landowners in those different areas and just tell them what's going on. And also with Jeff Buffton with the city of Arlington, he said that, with the China ditch and everything, they're in good situation, but he is concerned about some houses that are located along Cottonwood down there, right by the China ditch, I guess. So, I think it would be good for Arlington to have it redone as well. And and Lone Rock with the creek and everything, I think that there's some issues out there as well. So I'm hoping that they both decide to sign on with the city councils with them as well.
I'm sure they will, Chris. There's the city of Arlington just purchased that property, is my understanding, where the old motel is, and that would be speculative flood ground property. So, yeah, the original owner, I think, had passed away, and the heirs were trying to decide what to do with it. And as they went through trying to get it marketed and sold, they found out the city owned the front third of it to get into it anyway.
Oh.
So they were in real good position to negotiate something. I know they've been working on purchasing the whole thing. So, yeah.
Good to know. Good deal.
And so I also have have talked with Michelle Colby, our planning director as well, and I'm hoping to have her involved with the process on the county side as well.
This all sounds great to me. Thank you, Chris, for being part of it.
Thanks, Catherine, for pushing it.
Catherine.
Good job, Catherine. Okay, any other questions or comments on that piece? If not, next up we have the Gilliam East John Day Watershed Council Annual Report, but I don't see her on there. I'm wondering if maybe...
She said she was going to be out of the office and not able to attend.
Oh.
Yeah, she just provided the report, and then I attached the email saying she was unable to attend.
Got it. I missed the first email. I saw the report, but skipped over the email part. Okay. Well, if anybody has questions, her contact information is on there. So I think for members of the public that want to read it, again, this is all on the county's website as part of the court packet. And so if you want to read her report, it's there. Commissioners, if you have questions, her contact information is there on the email as well. So with that, we'll move right on. 6.3 is discussion on small business grant program. So I will just kick this off and say back in March, when Kaylin was here to give us an update on the large grant, COVID relief, small business grant program that we partnered with the chamber on, we briefly discussed the idea of working with the chamber to develop a small business grant program that was sort of modeled on that partnership, where the county would provide the funds, the chamber would administer the grant, and use a little bit of those funds to cover their administrative costs. And so Kaylin and I have been in discussions about that for months now, and Kaylin has put together sort of a concept outline for us to kick around, look at, and see if this is still something that we want to pursue. So Kaylin, I don't know if you want to just kind of give the high points from your concept outline, and then we can kind of go from there.
Absolutely. First, I'd just like to thank you guys for this opportunity to at least consider funding a small business grant program. I think that there's definitely a need. We've had a number of businesses, just in the last several months, call and say, are there any grant programs available? We've had a few folks say that they're interested in starting a business, but need some funds to get going, kind of changing the use of a vacant space to create it into something that will allow them to do their business in. And right now, there's just no funding available. We can provide a lot of other resources with educational trainings and loan programs that are available, but I think right now there's a lot of hesitancy in taking out a loan. But if we could provide something that just helps give them a little bit of startup funds or assistance in getting their business off the ground, I think it would be great. The intention behind the grant program would be to promote business entrepreneurship, support business economic growth and sustainability in Gilliam County, support businesses that have plans to expand their business in order to generate more revenue. So how can we support these businesses to grow and pivot to stay open and operating? Support businesses that contribute to the development and improvement of our local communities. So how can we keep these businesses open, as well as families in our community that are living here, operating their business and keeping kids in our schools? The benefits to the Gilliam County Court is the grant program would allow the county court to support private businesses without directly influencing the decision making. So we could move the grant asks through relatively quickly if it's done through the chamber. Obviously, we'd have a grant review committee part of this process. It would remove administrative burden as well on your county staff. Having the chamber facilitate this program allows the county to support the chamber's role as well in driving economic development in the communities. The chamber can serve as a greater resource to help the businesses, as well as be a greater resource to our county as well. And I see this as a huge opportunity to be a model for a grant program that potentially the other communities that the chamber is representing in Wheeler and Sherman County to also implement. As the chamber is taking the strategic direction to now serve Gilliam, Sherman, and Wheeler counties, we're looking for ways to provide, services and support that makes our entity, without question, one that is necessary for our area. I was hoping that we could start this year with the grant program and then look at maybe creating a 3 to 5 year plan where this is a grant program that, we can count on having a budget for each year. We'd have a great application process, just like we did for the COVID grant, and then be responsible to reporting back to the county court commissioners on a quarterly, twice a year basis, just to give you guys updates on what the program has done, what the needs are, and then how we can pivot and make it even better for the following year. I think that's kind of all I had. This is obviously just a proposal, just a draft, wanting to get it in front of you guys to see what you think and how we can continue to provide crucial to support to the businesses in Gilliam County right now.
Commissioners, do you have initial thoughts, questions?
I have some questions.
Go for it, Sherry.
Your review committee, when during the COVID distribution, what sectors of the community made up your review committee?
We had a neutral party, Small Business Development Center Executive Director was there. And then we had a representative from the county, one from Arlington, one from Condon, and then myself. I remained fairly neutral, essentially presented the information and was able to provide firsthand information on, what I had direct conversations with the businesses.
So do you see these grants as being similar to our nonprofit grants? Like there would be a capital improvements grant, an operations grant, a special projects grant, and a startup business type grant. Is that what you're thinking?
I see this being a little bit differently.
Okay.
This would be a grant program offering funding to businesses specifically for up to a certain amount of money, depending on what the county decides to fund this grant program at is where we'll figure out our caps at. I also think we could even potentially model that grant program where we require a little bit of a cash match. And I'd also like to see a emergency grant fund available. That one could be open year round, whereas the other ones could be open quarterly. So there's some strategy in how we're able to determine funding allocation. Obviously, I'd hope that this fund supports businesses in Arlington and Condon, and it would have an equal, support to both communities, making sure that that's there as well. And then also just a small business grant fund, because I don't think that Gilliam County can lend or grant to private businesses. So the capital improvement and the special projects and the operations grants, our small businesses, private businesses actually aren't eligible to apply for those. And this would be a program that they can actually apply for.
Yeah, my question was, would you structure it in that way, or you have like one grant, and you apply for a grant and you just, no matter what it's for, if you're going to do capital improvements or it's for operation expenses or some special project that you're working on, or
yes.
would you it'd be just basically, what is your need as a business, and then develop the review on.
Oh, I think we have pretty specific guidelines for what these grant programs are intended to support. But again, this is all, once we can decide if we're going to do this or not, these are details that we can figure out collaboratively in the memorandum of understanding is how the county wants this program to be administered. I'm happy as a clam to do whatever you guys hope or would like to see. I'm just looking for the opportunity to create a program to support the businesses.
Is there a dollar amount that you see would support that, where do we start? We start with $100,000. Do we start with $50,000? Do you see what the needs may be?
That's a great question. I guess I hand the floor over to the judge there. What's available? Can we start with at least, $60,000 to $75,000 just to get a fund going? Can we look at increasing that next year to 150 and then bringing it back down that third year so that we have funding to really build on? And I guess pivot that depending on what the need is and how we're able to impact the businesses.
And then the question to the judges, then that would be dollars that would come out of our economic development line item.
Yeah, so there's a few places potentially that we could look. One is we have a small business loan program that is still dormant. So if we wanted to convert those funds into a grant instead, that I think that was the fund that we drained for the COVID relief last year. So it's rebuilding right now. I think we have about 60,000 budgeted this year. So obviously that is based on tonnage. So that's going to depend on how much tonnage is actually coming in through waste management. But yes, there is also a sizable economic development fund that I think this would be appropriate for. And I would need to look, but I think we have several $1 million in that. So we have some flexibility if that was the direction that the court wanted to move in.
Is that something you see, Commissioner Shannon, as a good way to spend our economic enhancement dollars?
Yeah, I don't know whether I need to claim a potential conflict as a business owner in Gilliam County, but potentially I feel like as a business owner in Gilliam County and the money's coming directly from the county, I wouldn't be eligible for any of it anyway. But and I do think it is, it's a hole that we have that we need really bad that just isn't filled right now. And it's we've got the nonprofit grants and the stuff along those lines, but I'm definitely, I'm definitely in favor of what's it going to take to help build our community. And you can't do that without small businesses. You can't do it without big businesses. You can't do it without housing. It's all the stuff,
Right.
But, having attractive communities for people to move into, you have to have some businesses.
Yeah.
And we've got some problems, definitely have some severe problems. So I'm definitely in support. I do think we need to really look at the structure of the committee.
Yes.
And have some input on that. And I think this, the port had this set up through the USDA at one time and had a $10,000 startup grant, which I have utilized. And it was, for me, extremely successful in getting me off the ground. And there was some criteria you could use the money for and not. So there's a lot of ways to think and look at, your startup funds. And I like the idea that you have some emergency funds and some things that you're thinking about also. But it is tough. Just speaking for me, it is tough to do business in a small community. And the long-term solution is to build your communities up so you can become sustainable. And this is, obviously I'm in support of something that'll help build our communities. And so there you are for me.
Thank you.
Do you guys have a sense? I mean, what we could do is, it sounds like the things that I heard is that we're talking about several, maybe not funding streams, but several sort of programs. So maybe an emergency, one that is just open year round. I like the idea of sort of separating our startups from our existing businesses for folks who are coming in looking for sort of that seed money, which Pat mentioned. And then are we thinking that we would just maybe have a third one that is just kind of everything from expansion, so if people needed equipment, to wanting to fix up the facade, to, sort of lumping those kinds of things together? I don't necessarily think we want to overcomplicate it, but I'm wondering if maybe those three things sound about right, or if there are additional things that we're thinking we would want to look at creating.
I think those three things really cover it.
Okay.
You have to have some business expansion in there available, for people that want to grow or see an opportunity to grow. So don't you, Kaylin, think that the three are really what they're really targeting what the needs would be?
Absolutely. And I think we don't want to limit what people can apply for, right? We need to consider every application and how we can best support these businesses, and then follow up with them, right? What services do they need? Is it with the SBDC? Is it employee training? How we can really help these businesses, take these funds and utilize them to be successful, sustainable, long-term. I think that there's just, in creating a grant program, it provides a lot of hope to businesses that there's just something available, even if they don't get the full ask, but that there is a fund that's available for them.
One of the things that I really liked that was a requirement of the COVID grants was actually working and having a session with SBDC, because I wasn't on all of the reviews, but I did the initial ones when we first did them way back in last April. And one of the things that struck me is a lot of folks their books were, a lot of them were just sort of handwritten books and things like that. And SBDC sat down with a lot of folks and helped go through their financials with them and did some things that I think are just for, somebody who has a dream of starting a business. They maybe don't have the dream of being an accountant on top of that, so there's some other things that come with owning a business that you know, maybe they have the passion and the drive, but they need some of that technical experience or expertise in order to keep going. And so I really liked the fact that we were bringing those additional resources in and sort of strengthening the base, I think, and the knowledge of our small business community and our entrepreneurs. To me, I really liked that. And so I would hope that maybe we would consider having that be part of the expectation, is that the chamber is helping connect our small businesses with those folks that can provide additional resources, even if it's not necessarily monetary, but expertise on accounting and all kinds of things.
Yeah, helping them develop a business plan. Our 8-year-old granddaughter wants to open a consignment shop, and she has big plans. So I would hope that she would qualify. Is age a problem?
She needs a startup grant.
This
It
means
will have to be a registered
you might
business,
have
you
a
know.
conflict too, Sherry.
But I'm not involved. She's got her whole plan. I don't. She's always telling me I will consign to her shop. She has decided what I will make. But
I will just echo that the amount of strategic partners that we now have backing the chamber is significant. COVID has really allowed us to create some unique relationships with Business Oregon, Reinventing Rural, Main Street America, Rural Development Initiative. And so, as well as the SBDC, we now have an incredible network of partners that are here and ready to help our businesses. It's exciting, really exciting.
So in terms of duration, Kaylin had thrown out the idea of maybe doing like a 3-year. Does that sound like a good time frame? Sometimes when we do these agreements, we sort of write in that it's 3 years, but can have an automatic extension. So if the court decides it's not the direction they want to go, they can always back out. But if it's working well, then we don't have to redo an entire memorandum. What is your feeling on timeframe for this, commissioners?
Yeah, I would think flexibility would be a big deal in the whole thing, and going either way, but maybe not even. I mean, as long as you're in a situation that we can extend it if we need to. And I, even on the funding, I think, you talk about $60,000, you could go through that really fast. So what's the flexibility in backfilling if it's obvious it's working and we need some more funding? I do think the follow-up's real critical. I know with the Port USDA grants that there was quite a little bit of money that was given out. There wasn't a lot of follow-up on, and businesses didn't go far, do much with it. And that causes lots of heartburn in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So, the flexibility is a big deal, but follow up and then, having some, it's just flexibility available to backfill and keep it going, not just run out and say, we're done this year. Yeah. That's a problem, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. If other people see that the startup business is being successful because of the program, and then somebody else comes and says, this is my idea and this is my plan, and we say, well, sorry, we don't have any money this year, that to me, that doesn't work. We need to make sure that we're flexible enough that we can support all our businesses.
So what we could do, commissioners, I'll need to run this by legal counsel, but what we could look at doing is setting a floor. So in other words, saying no less than 60,000. I'm just throwing out a number. We can pick whatever that is. And then putting in place in that MOU a mechanism whereby if the chamber goes through those funds, is giving out those funds at a higher rate, that we are budgeting, and especially if we're taking out of economic development, I'm not really worried about not having the budget allocation because there's a sizable amount sitting in there. But just figuring out what that mechanism looks like for the chamber to come back and request additional allocation. So we could sort of have a guarantee so that Kaylin knows at least what the floor is, the minimum amount that she has to give out, and then we can figure out depending on how quickly that money goes, what the mechanism is for her to request additional funds from the commissioners.
So
Does that
but Kaylin, what is your expectation? I know you have concerns because the court has requested that you become sustainable and blah, blah, blah. What is your expectations on what you're going to pull out of this? Because I'll have some heartburn with that probably.
Oh gosh, I know, right? The administrative fee. Well, I would, ask that we just look at considering what we did in our previous MOU. A standard administrative fee is 10%, but if the court wants to negotiate that down to 8.5%, I'm willing, again, I'm willing to open the floor to all discussion, and any opportunity to get this program up and running is the greatest priority for me. It's not necessarily sustainability for the chamber, because in providing a program like this, it creates sustainability for our organization. We become an entity that, people view as necessary and doing good work for the community and economic development, and really supporting the ecosystem of the communities.
Yeah, well, in saying that, I support you. We've had lots of conversations. I support you 1,000%. But I do think when you're looking at a $10,000 grant and the chamber gets 1,000 of it, that's a pretty big bite, because that 1,000 would probably, part of that would go a long ways to helping that business. And so, I think we need to talk about that.
Yeah, I think definitely we can work through all of these details. I think, for me, how I view it is we regularly provide funding for the chamber one way or the other. I like the idea of tying it to something specific and tangible. When somebody asks us, why is the chamber taking an administrative fee? Well, because if we were not paying that administration to the chamber, we would be paying it to somebody else, whether that's our own staff or, those costs are built into our budget, but that is things that our staff would have to be doing instead of other business for the county. So to me, I kind of feel like, even though it may not completely shore up the chamber's finances, if it moves the chamber closer to standing on its own 2 feet and being fully sustainable, and we get to support small businesses at the same time, to me, that's a win-win, that we get a community asset that is able to engage more directly with our businesses, and then also our businesses benefiting from having those financial resources to them. So I understand your point, because I've heard some folks saying, like, why did when we were doing the COVID money, why did a chunk of that go to the chamber? But I also think there was some great value in having somebody like Kaylin there to sort of hold folks' hands, and she deserves to make a living. She has a family to support too. So we need to, I think all boats can rise if we structure this well, I think.
Yes. And Pat, my hope is that Sherman County and Wheeler County will also support this initiative. And if I, set the standard at a, just offering a grant program and not being compensated for it, I think it would really hurt the chamber.
I don't think we can expect the chamber to pay for the program.
I'm not asking the chamber to pay for it. I'm just saying, look at the percentages and, and making sure it's realistic, because 10% is might be a normal grant. I don't know that fee. I know that the state was charging 5% and we allowed the chamber 10 on the COVID funds. And so, the money going out to the community, and I think the chamber is, great partner with the businesses in the community and helps in a lot of ways. I just, just the discussion on what that number should be. I definitely think they need to be compensated.
Yeah. So in terms of next steps, commissioners, do you feel comfortable with Kaylin and I sort of working on a draft MOU, trying to capture some of the things we've discussed about. I'll leave things like the administrative fee and the floor kind of just open. We'll just put placeholders in with our attorneys for now so we can discuss that in more detail. But I'd like to sort of get a framework, a more detailed framework, I think would be helpful for us to actually go through and say, yes, we like this. No, we want to change that. Does that sound like that's the right approach for next steps?
Yes.
This does to me.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Kaylin, you and I will get our heads together and along with our legal counsel and start getting a more detailed framework worked up for this. But it sounds like in concept, we're on board with developing a program.
That sounds great. And I know we had talked about an initial start. Did we land on a number there, Pat, or is that something still we're going to work details
I think
out
that
on?
going to go through the attorneys and figure
Okay.
out what that number is going to be and how we can be flexible to react. Isn't that right, Liz?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds great, you guys. Thank you so much.
Great. So we will, I'll come back with the draft once we get legal counsel involved, and Kaylin and I we can schedule something where we sit down with our legal counsel and kind of map out what we discussed today. So awesome. Anything else on that piece? If not, I see the public library, Arlington, your smiling faces. So we asked the Arlington Public Library as part of the IGA that we have with the city of Arlington, the library is supposed to come and give us an annual report. And so they are here to kind of give us an update on how the year went and where the money went and any fun projects and programs they're working on. So take it away, ladies.
Hi, first time on Zoom, so patient. My name is Betsy Jeffries Perry. I am one of the board members here at the Arlington Public Library. I've been on the board for about 5 years. What brought me to Arlington was the wind. You know, they ask you, what brought you here, wind or wave? Wind. Wind is what brought us here, and we are here to stay. Yes, we are. So my part of this presentation is, I want to say, the fluff piece of the presentation. I'm going to just go through our programs that we offered through the library. Despite of COVID, we still were able to offer some programs. I have a PowerPoint presentation. I don't know how to do it though, but I share screen. I don't really. Open. Ah!
Ooh, I think
Oh,
that's
you guys, hi guys, you're still here.
Teresa's screen right now, I think.
Okay. Well, I don't know how to do this.
Teresa, I think Teresa may be bringing up your PowerPoint. Just a second.
Thanks, Teresa.
She's trying, she said, through the door.
Can we all go to the beach?
I know, let's do it.
Gosh, that makes me want to go.
That's hers.
There we go.
Okay, hi. Yeah. Okay, this was just intro. You can go to the next one. Our first program that we were able to offer this year was Storytime. Storytime meets twice. No, the next slide. How do I do it?
Hey, Teresa.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I think they're ready for the next slide.
Ours is saying reconnecting. Oh, no, it's recording. I can read. So, are we good? Good? Okay. Thank you guys for being so patient. Okay. So, we offer this program twice a month. We had a 3-month-old all the way up until a 14-year-old attending our program, which is we had about 10 to 12 people, usually 10 to 12 students, kids, that came, which is huge considering this is during school time. So we were happy about that. They come in, they usually have a theme with the books, the craft, and the snack, all kind of coordinating. Kids love it. My kids are in there and they look forward to it every other Wednesday. Next slide, please. We also we call this in our budget, if you look at our budget, it's under early literacy program. So because of COVID, the preschool usually rides the little bus that is donated by the Nazarene Church down to the library. But because of COVID and preschools not being allowed to go on field trips, we took our librarian up there. So she basically does a story time inside the preschool. They get a theme, snack, craft, and the book that goes along with the theme. The teachers actually really love it. They asked for more science to be put into it, so we're kind of mixing it up this next year because they still can't travel. With this, why we consider this so very important to our program is most of these kids do not attend the library. So this is their first exposure to the library, to books that are free to them, trying to get out the point that they can come down here, get these books, take them home. So it's their first exposure to literacy. So we put a big emphasis on trying to expose kids that don't normally venture out to the local library and getting them here. So we are very happy with this program, and we were so glad that we were able to change it and still make it available to them during COVID. Go ahead and hit that next slide. So my kids are in two of these ones too. I am a homeschool mom of my two younger ones. My older one attends public school, and I was very grateful for this. If you don't know what STEM is, it's science, technology, engineering, and math kind of squished together. There's been a big push to work those 4 components into one, and my theory and my belief on why it's so important, it increases critical thinking and increases all those components into how do they work together, starting from such a young age. They don't even know that they're learning, and they are having so much fun. So this program was offered once a month to our community, and we've actually got a couple more homeschool families that we have found that will be joining us this year. So I'm really excited. This was kindergarten all the way up to 14 is our oldest that we had in here. She'll be 15 this year, and she'll be back. So we are excited for that. You can go to the next slide. This is our take-home STEM. So once again, once a month, we had the in-library homeschool STEM. But we wanted to make sure that this was offered to our whole community. So we had a take-home STEM once a month. And our librarians did so good at getting grants and finding STEM materials that we were able to get a couple kits that they made available to the whole school. So they went up to the elementary school, passed it out to all of the kids in the elementary school and the preschool, making it available to everyone, not just the homeschool or who was available to show up. So I thought that was a great resource for the whole community. Next slide, please. So because this was technically in this fiscal year, end of last summer, I added this. COVID, we had to cancel our summer program last summer because of COVID, but we didn't want to not have our library be another resource for children during the summer. So our librarians came up with these COVID craft kits. Swing by, pick them up, grab some books for a couple weeks, take it all home with you. It worked out really well. We actually had a lot more kids swing by and get the crafts than that would actually show up for our normal reading summer program. So we were excited about that. Our librarians know our patrons pretty well, that they would have stacks of books pre-scanned, pre-ready to go, because they knew what the children like, what books would interest them, ready to go with their craft kit. So it was pretty amazing to see, like, oh, yes, my kid did love that. Thank you. And just expose them, because we did not want them to go that long without having the exposure to the library, having exposure to reading, because previously to this, they were out of the school building also. Next slide, and we'll take you to this summer. This summer, I did get to add it because we actually started earlier this summer. I think kids needed it. And I'm glad we did, because COVID spiked and we had to cancel the last part of it. But we had a great turnout. We had the highest turnout we had ever had in the years that I have been here for the reading program. It was oh, I don't even know the theme. I'm blanking. Color my world.
Yeah.
Color my world.
Reading colors.
There you go. So we break it down. How we do our reading summer program is we have littles and then we have bigs. This is the biggest big section that we've ever had, and it actually made our children's librarian kind of nervous because she didn't know she had enough supplies. We had such, usually like 4th grade, 5th grade, they're like, I don't want to go to the library, but we actually had a lot of older kids and we were so grateful that they stuck with us. You might recognize some of the paintings. They were in our Gilliam County Fair. Just making that plug with all the way to Condon. Make sure we like I mentioned, we did have to cancel our last day just because we had a spike. So we went back to the bag. We made them like a kit. And usually you have to turn in your reading log to get the special prize, but we gave it to everybody that participated up until then. Next slide, I thought that I would just do fun with numbers. Our attendance stayed about the same throughout this year from the previous years. And I think that was made possible because we still counted like online orders or called up Mary, hey Mary, I need a good book by this author, and she fulfilled those orders, and we still considered all of those. We made sure we were available during the shutdowns of COVID, when it was spiking. We made sure that we still utilized the resource of the library. Computer shortage did go down, and I think that was because of coming into buildings. It wasn't really, people weren't really wanting to do that, but if you notice, our Wi-Fi went up by 300 patrons. So kind of evened out. People were just using their own devices, laptops, computers, and we are so grateful we switched recently to a faster internet that, you know, you can have multiple people on the internet at one time. So we haven't glitched out yet on our end. So we're happy about that too. The children's program, I just put 2 numbers. I skipped COVID year, but it wasn't actually low. But we went from 261 all the way up to 707 this year. And I think that was because of our outreach. We've been trying really hard to get, hey, we have programs, come. At another event at the river the other day, I was like, yes, come to the library, come, stop by the library. So I think all of our board members and our staff do try really hard to advocate for our library. We also added the STEM programs, and we counted all the kids that picked up crafts and craft kits and other pickups that we had. Sadly, I wanted to put this one in. We were really sad that our adult program was 0. I'm part of the adult program. It's the book club that we offer once a month. It's just such a vulnerable age group that we did not want to expose unnecessary, you know, just didn't want to chance it. So that, if you look at the big paper is in the papers that Mary sent you. And so that, I just wanted to draw attention. We'll be adding it once we feel it is safe again. Yes. And then the last number that I wanted to point out is our books that are loaned out. 986 were loaned out this year. I don't know why I find this. Yeah. So we had 614 last year, but I thought I would compare it to other groups, other libraries around here. Ione had 279, Duffer had 52, and Hermiston, a very big, had 3,228. So it's a bigger one, and I had that much, but we almost hit 1,000. So it just proves that, I mean, it just solidifies the fact that our librarians are doing their job and getting the right books to get the patrons in here, to get them reading, get them enjoying the space and in our community. And that is it for me. And I just want to say thank you guys as a board member. Having us be a line item in your budget, you can breathe easier when it's a line item and not like did we get it? Did we get the funds? Can we buy more books? Like, so it just solidifies that we're doing a good job. We're doing what we need to do for the community. And so I just want to express my appreciation as a patron, as a person that uses the programs, and as a board member. I appreciate you guys, and thanks for having faith in our little library. And I will shoot it over to Mary. Yeah. I can talk.
do appreciate all you guys have done for us. I tried to give you a picture of where the money went. So it might have been too big of a picture. I don't know. I don't know if you have any questions. So
Very thorough, Mary.
I tried. Some of it was probably a little confusing, but I figured at least, you know, it's there. So the only real major changes we made this year with the funds is adding it's a QSE HRA. It's a qualified, what's it called? The QSE throws me. I was going to look it up. It's basically, it only pays for insurance premiums. It's a reimbursement fund, a health reimbursement fund would normally have also included anything you paid out of pocket that you could get reimbursed. But the main thing the library board wanted to be able to do was help with insurance premiums, because this is the first year they've ever done anything to put in any kind of benefits whatsoever. So I was very appreciative. We did kind of get a slow start on it. We tried to get it going right at the beginning of the first fiscal year, but we didn't actually get all the process completed until the first part of 2021. So part of the funds that were supposed to be paid out then are being paid out over time. And so there's an extra, it's $300 a month is what they decided upon initially. And then so it's a little bit higher right now and will be probably for another 6 months, I'm thinking. But we did carry that over into the next year so we could make sure that got caught up, and then it'll drop down to just the 300. We did get to do some repairs on furniture. We reupholstered a couple chairs, which desperately needed it. And we purchased furniture that was getting pretty worn out in the children's area. Got some pretty fun stuff in there. I'm trying to think what else we changed over we're in the process of changing over our phone service to the co-op. We had our internet changed over quite a while ago and our fax, but we're going to change the phone over too. So we will actually save quite a bit on that, because they don't charge anything near what CenturyLink charges. So we'll be good. So future plans, we want to kind of repaint the children's area and spruce it up a little more excitement in there. And we're going to make a little corner for our previous librarian that was here that passed away. So there will be Billy's Corner. And then we also are planning on redoing the lights in our old section of our library and retrofitting them for LEDs. Great. So that's kind of in the works for next year, or for this coming year, the year we're in, I guess, already. Mm-hmm. The city has approved of it, and we have a company that's given us an estimate on it. And then I got a call from the Avangrid Renewables, and they didn't know we had a project, but they asked if we would like to submit some type of application to receive funds if we had a project that would work. So I explained to her what it was, and she thought that was perfect. So I'm kind of in the process of doing that. So we'll all be taken care of, hopefully.
Wonderful.
We still have some funds in our library project funds so that we can pay for whatever they can't do. We'll pay for it. It was $2,600, almost $2,700 to retrofit them. There's 9 fixtures in there, and it will make a huge difference in that room. So we just want to thank you for everything you do and putting us into a secure funding. Really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Questions for our ladies from the library?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to give them kudos. They do have a great program, and I know the kids really enjoy it. I know, again, that 8-year-old granddaughter is in some of those pictures, and she enjoys every minute of it. So thank you.
It's always fun to stop at the crosswalks where they trail across the street downtown.
Little ducklings.
And also the other thing I appreciate is the aesthetics of your building, the plants and the flowers, and it always looks so nice there, and it really is an asset to our downtown community.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think I'm going to have to have them spend a little money hiring somebody else to take care of it, though. It's getting overwhelming for me.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
I think I'm gonna look into that and see if we can get somebody to just kind of maintain it. That will help a lot. A lot of the children's programming stuff really is attributed to Jessica. I backed away from that when she came along, and her and Betsy have done a great job with it, and I really appreciate both of them. And the board is great too. So we're doing all right down here.
Yeah, I will say I just love our libraries, both of them. We'll have the Condon one on a little bit later today for another, but I think people are always, out-of-towners are always surprised at the facility, the library facilities that we have, I think, in both communities. And I think it's a tribute to the communities that we value the library. So I'm happy that we're able to support what you're doing. You're doing wonderful work. So
well, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thanks guys.
All right, thank you.
We'll see you next year. Have a good year. Okay, let's move on to 6.5, which is discussion on leasing Burns Park to Avangrid for temporary workforce housing. I think you guys all received the email or forwarded the email from Bill Patterson. He reached out to Daryl in our grounds and maintenance department asking about the possibility of long-term RV rentals at Burns Park for their workers coming in over the winter. Just as a reminder, Burns Park does usually close each October. So this would be sort of a special deal for us to keep it open. And with that, I think maybe, Lisa, I'll turn it over to you to sort of walk through. Staff has been kicking this around internally. So if the court decided they wanted to move forward, there were some things that staff is recommending that we consider. So Lisa, do you want to walk us through what some of those discussions have been?
Yes, certainly. So Daryl would have been here, but unfortunately he had to guide CIS, our insurers, around our facilities. So I'm Daryl today. One of the things that we've been having is conversations with Nathan to understand a little context, particularly on the financial side, because I understand we did a similar thing with Burns Park when some of the wind farms were going up. And one of the kind of things I'd heard and wanted Nathan to confirm was how that worked out for us financially, because I heard we barely broke even. So one of the things that was happening over winter, obviously RVs are not the most best accommodations for retaining heat. So their internal HVACs are running all the time, along with their water pipe heaters, so that their water supply doesn't freeze. So in our conversations with Nathan, he had proposed that if Bill wanted to lease the entire park, what we could do is there's 17 spots at $500 a month, which gives a very little amount on top of what we usually charge our residential type customers as income to the county, as revenue, and then also have Bill as project manager to the Avangrid project. He is the contracted project manager. Pick up also the utility bill, because that was the hefty financial lift for us that kind of meant we didn't break even on that because of all the heating requirements. So that was kind of where Nathan had pitched it, and I'm inclined to agree with him. If Bill is interested in renting the entire park, which it sounds like they are, things for the county court to consider. Obviously, this project is going to go on far longer than we usually close Burns Park, which is, we usually open it back up just before spring break. But we really don't have much usage until Memorial Weekend at the end of May. Obviously, they would need it longer than that. So what kind of offer would county court be interested in making to them at the expense of perhaps our tourists or families that come in for annual get-together and use Burns Park? The facility wouldn't be available if we still had the contractors there. So something for you to consider and discuss and see what you're comfortable with. The other thing I would like to propose is that we would continue to close the restrooms and the pavilion. We need to anyway, we need to winterize it because otherwise we're going to have pipes freezing and potentially bursting. So their RVs would need to be self-contained. They would need to have those facilities. And then the other thing that we would probably want to stipulate is that they don't do their own snow plowing of the park, simply because they don't know where pipes are, where, you know, fire hydrants are, things like that. We could end up with some unintentional damage. So it'd be something that the county and or city would need to take care of, but it wouldn't be the first priority. Obviously, we'd be clearing Main Street and county roads and those kind of things. Also, my staff would not have the time to go in daily and clean those facilities while the contractors were using it. Winter can be a busy time with many other things that need taking care of with the buildings, especially in adverse weather, systems break down and they're in troubleshooting mode some of the time during the winter season. So really looking for your guidance as to what you're comfortable with, what you want to move forward with, or what you do not want to move forward with, or any questions.
Has there been any discussion about the cost with them that Nathan's come up with?
Not to my knowledge.
I don't think we've had the.
We wanted to get a sense of where county court were.
So do we know where that $500 a month, how that relates to other trivia courts? And
so we usually charge $400 of residential usage on there, so it's $100 up on that.
I'm not sure where the port is now.
I'm not sure where the port is. Last I knew about the private Condon RV park, that was $400 a month, but that was before we had a change of ownership. So I'm not sure if that's increased since the new owners have taken the park on.
I think they're at 400 still, and that's on their bigger units too, but I'm not positive. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the county needs to lose any money, but you know, it's important to get those people in town to spend money in the community. That should be the priority. We don't have enough places for them, and we need to do everything on both ends of the county to accommodate in any way we can, I believe.
The one thing I will say for our other RV parks that has been feedback from previous groups that have come in is that they really do not want the county underbidding them, undercutting them for our prices. So I would just say that I think we need to stay in alignment, and it may behoove us to actually reach out to the new owners and see if they've been contacted by Bill and if they've already offered quotes, so that we're not undercutting or Bill's not using us to negotiate lower prices from some of our private business owners.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that on the north end, they're already booked. I know that the port is, and I'm pretty sure the upper trailer court is too. I'm not sure about the lower one.
I think the private park at Condon also is, having driven by recently, and when I first came here was a resident on it myself. It's not usually full this time of year, and it's full.
Yeah.
So
And they're gonna come from Shelter. They're gonna go to Condon just as easy as they go to Arlington. I mean, that's the difference in mileage. It's not gonna be a big deal to them.
Mhm.
Well, we've heard that they've had to take accommodation for their 300 plus contracted employees as far as Tri-Cities, and they're coming in daily from there. So the trip from Condon is small in comparison.
Yeah.
So what's the? I mean, if I was going to lease, if I was in their position and wanted to lease that, I think there should be some conversation. Is there some way to keep those restrooms open without freezing them up and having them maintain them so that they do have those available? I mean, there's showers in there and everything. If I was RVing for months on end, I would like to have those open at times, but
Yeah, I'd have to chat with Daryl about what extra measures he would need to take to winterize them. But I know the reason we usually close them is because of the complexities of winterizing them. Also, you leave them open and everybody passing through town uses them. So
I wonder what the
can be
problem is,
unsafe for
because
our
they're heated.
residents.
They're heated, aren't they? I mean, I'm kind of confused on what the problem would be.
I've not used them, Commissioner Shannon, to actually know what their functionality is like. The pavilion's not a big deal, but we do have to turn the water off to that because it's obviously much more exposed. It's not a fully enclosed building.
Yep.
No, there is heat in the restrooms, but I get where they're coming from and the whole maintenance during the winter issue. My concern here is the time frame we're under at this point. If they want to move in, if they want to take over October 1st, then we need to either make some type of decision or pass that decision on to someone else so that we can make it happen when in the time frame that they're looking at. And what is our end date? I see we have reservations already for March, so we would need to say they all have to get out at a certain time, or what does that look like, you suppose?
That, for me, the logistics of what we've already talked about are things that we can figure out along the way and find out what Bill does and doesn't want. For me, the more difficult piece is, what do you want to do come mid to late spring next year, when people and residents, extended families, are used to coming in and making use of that facility? Do you want a hard cutoff date for the contractors? And then, to Commissioner Shannon's point, where do they go?
Right.
Because we are limited on where they can go.
Yeah.
So that is something I really would like some guidance from County Court on, as to how you want us to manage that. Who's going to win the deal, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or do
Kind of like the housing problem, isn't it?
It is the housing problem. I mean, if we had some alternatives, be that more motel, more Airbnb, more, just general facilities, could we, have extended this? But that's not where we're at right now.
So what is your feeling, commissioners?
Well, that's a tough one.
Well,
that's a tough one, but I mean, bird in hand, and the fact that they're here and they're going to be here, you don't want to discourage them getting it, and then not, then they are in the Tri-Cities and the communities lose. They just flat lose.
No, I think we need to do it. It's just the logistics of, when do we cut off and what do they do at that point? And
so one thing we could look at doing is the actual agreement with Bill could just be for those winter months when it's closed. And we could let him know that if his people want to stay beyond the agreement, that they would need to make a separate reservation themselves. And then that way, if folks are happy and they want to do that, I mean, for some of them, maybe they're looking at wanting to stay in Condon because it's winter and they don't want to be on roads, but during springtime, they want to come back and forth. But I just wonder if maybe that's the way to bridge so that other members of the public, if they get in and get their reservations, fine. When we would normally be opening the park. But this way, Bill's folks have a heads up that if they want to be in March, they need to make the reservation with Daryl.
I think that's a really good approach. For them, there's a peak time of construction when there's more contractors here, it tapers up and peaks and then falls off. But, with the shortage we got, I don't know how much effect that will have on the whole picture, but it might, they may be at a different place in the spring than they are in the winter and not have as many people looking. But I think that's a good approach, and it does kind of at least make it fair for everybody.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good solution. Thank you.
Okay, so commissioners, here's what I'm thinking. I put a suggested motion language, or we put some in, basically to just authorize the staff to go ahead and negotiate with Bill what a rental agreement would look like. I think, Lisa, do you feel like we've got pretty good parameters in terms of we would start October 1, it would end when we would normally be opening up the park. The cost, I think we would be just checking in to make sure that we're not undercutting our other private parks. Are you guys, if is 500 acceptable, if Bill's okay with that?
My guess it's going to be right in there. I'm not so sure the port isn't at 600 now. I know that a lot of the parks in Boardman went to 600, and at that time they were coming to Arlington because it was $100 cheaper, but I'll bet that's pretty close.
Okay. So we'll, if everyone's okay with that, we would do 500 and then talk to them about them covering the utility bill when it comes in. Basically, if you guys are okay with that, I would be looking just for a motion to go ahead and authorize Lisa and Daryl and Nathan to work with them to come up with the agreement and allow me to sign it once we have an agreement, so that it doesn't have to come back to county court. And then that way we can sort of fast track it so we can get folks in by early October. Does that work for you guys?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
I move to authorize Gilliam County staff to negotiate and the county judge to execute a rental agreement with Avangrid or its contractors for Burns Park with the terms and conditions discussed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we authorize Gilliam County staff to negotiate and the county judge to execute a rental agreement with Avangrid or its contractors for Burns Park with the terms and conditions discussed. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Lisa, let's go forth and get something on paper.
I'm on it.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, let's move on to 6.6, which is consider approval of school resource officer contract with Condon School District. So if you recall, we approved a similar agreement with Arlington back on during our August 18th meeting. Basically, again, this is the sheriff's office providing a deputy that will be in the schools part-time. It's built into the budget, so we're not talking about new FTE. It's Kayla is the one that I think Gary is assigned to do this. So as you'll see, the services to the school district for the 2021-2022 school year consists of 1.25 FTE for one deputy. This one would be provided at no cost. I wanted to note that Arlington agreed to pay because they had it in the budget. Condon did not have it in the budget. And so at least for this first year, it's for free of charge. But other than that, I think the agreements are basically identical in terms of the services provided. Questions on it?
I didn't have any questions.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the school resource officer contract with the Condon School District as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the school resource officer contract with the Condon School District as presented. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to 6.7. This is consider approval of increasing library director position to 40 hours. And I will kick this off before I turn it over. Mary, do you have any of your board members with you, or is it just you?
I have Chris Batland here with me.
Okay, perfect. So just to recap, with the newly adopted collective bargaining agreement that we just approved however long ago, 2 meetings ago, it allows the county court to increase the hours of our union represented positions, the ones that were at 37.5, to move them up to 40 hours, so long as that increase is agreed to by both the court and the employee, the affected employee. So the Gilliam County Library Board had reached out and is requesting that we consider moving the position for the library director position from 37.5 to 40. And Mary has indicated, although she can probably say as well here, that she is agreeable to the increase as well. So Mary, do you want to add to that, or Chris?
My board thought I already was 40 hours a week.
What's that? Say that again.
My board thought I already was 40 hours a week.
Oh.
Aha.
That's funny. So I think when we talked about bumping up your FTE, there was questions about like what the extra hours would be used for. So could you sort of walk us through, Mary, kind of where you guys are, what the extra 2.5 hours, is that just going to give you some additional capacity time? Will that change the library hours at all? Those kinds of details.
So depending on if we decide to increase my average day to 8 hours a day, I would be here at 9 instead of 9:30. Or we were talking about me coming in for an extra 2.5 hours on Friday mornings and opening up earlier on Friday. So we would be open from 9 to 5 on Fridays instead of 11.
Got it. Okay. So it would impact hours potentially.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll discuss that more at our next board meeting.
Okay. One thing, this is not at all related, but since I have you here and I have a board member, I wanted to throw this out. Can you walk me through a little bit the children's programming? We previously have talked about some of our parents struggling with after school care. And I was just wondering, not that we want to turn the library into an after school program. That's not what I'm after. But I was wondering if some of our programming, do we have programming for kids after school in the library, and what that might look like? If that's a possibility for some folks who, could drop their kids off and we have like reading hour or something. I don't know. But so I just wanted to throw that out there.
So most of the time, because our youth librarian is here only on Thursdays and Friday afternoons, I'm here by myself the rest of the time.
Okay.
We do have a group of kids who come in and do their homework, but they're the older kids, are like 3rd and 4th graders.
Okay.
We don't have staff for K through 1st, 2nd graders.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Questions for Mary or Chris, commissioners?
I don't have any questions.
I think the goal is to eventually get all of our employees to 40 hours a week. That's what we're going through. So,
right. Yeah, this is just one more step in that process. So I think it's a good time to do that.
Administratively, and it helps a lot. And especially if that allows us to have the library open additional hours, I think that's great too for the community. So I'm supportive of moving it if you guys are supportive.
Yes, definitely.
So we have suggested motion language in here again. What I would like, if we could, is if we're going to go ahead and move it to 40, to go ahead and authorize Lisa to update the position description so that it doesn't have to come back just to change the hours. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I move to increase the hours for the library director position to 40 and to authorize the chief of staff to update the library director position description accordingly.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we increase the hours for the library director position to 40 and authorize the chief of staff to update the library director position description accordingly. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mary, we're moving you to 40.
Okay, so I'm guessing it won't start until October or November, the first of a month.
So yeah, probably for Ellen's sake, why don't we touch base offline and just see if it makes more sense for her to do October 1st. I'm assuming that it's not a heavy lift for her to change, but I don't want to commit to that until I hear from her.
Okay.
If I may, one thing as we go through this process for any employee, I'd then like to confirm in writing to them the effective date and that this is happening. Let them have it formally in writing. It helps both the employee and the supervisor because either of those two entities change over time. It's then documented on the employee's file.
Okay.
So we'll circle back, Mary, and figure out the date between Lisa and Ellen.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Okay. Moving on, 6.8. This is discussion on transferring tables and chairs management. So, as you guys probably are aware, Gilliam County is currently managing the scheduling for the forward leadership tables and chairs. That is currently being handled by Teresa in our office here. It used to be a position, or used to be a task for our community development coordinator. But when that position was eliminated, it moved over to Teresa. I have started some discussions just out of curiosity to see if the chamber would be interested in taking over the management of the tables and chairs for a couple of reasons. One, I'm always looking to streamline what we're doing for Gilliam County, and so removing administrative burden here. But the other thing that I think is probably more significant and important for the public is, one, Kaylin's in the office 5 days a week, so scheduling's a little bit easier. And the other thing is most people, well, two, the chamber is often the one who is scheduling the tables for their own events most of the time. And or three, a lot of times if other people are doing community events, they're already working with the chamber to come up with posters and publicize. So to me, it made sense if we could consider transferring the management over. I think that would give the public sort of a one-stop shop for their organizing, where they can just call Kaylin, get their tables and chairs scheduled, get their poster made, get everything, and call an office too that is staffed 5 days a week, which I think is important too, because a lot of times our folks need it on the weekend. And so if there's a problem, we don't have staff sitting in the office on Fridays to troubleshoot for folks. So I think on the whole, it might be worth discussing moving it. I put in the memo, the budget, we regularly budget to replace the tables and chairs and pick up the insurance for the trailer. So we have a little bit less, right around 8,000, a little bit less because we paid the insurance already on it. And so one of the things I wanted to explore with you two is whether, if we decided to move forward with transferring the management, if we would go ahead and take that 8,000, split it between the two chambers. My understanding is that the north end, that they're planning on buying their own set of tables and chairs. And so that those funds could go to support that project. And then the other half would go to the Condon Chamber to support any replacement tables and chairs that they need to maintain the tables and chairs program. So just throwing this out there for discussion. What do you think about this idea?
And what kind of shape are the Condon, the Ford chairs and tables in?
I think they're well used. I haven't seen them recently, but is that an accurate description, Kaylin?
Yeah, well used. I think there's a few tables missing and several chairs. So we'd want to look at everything on the trailer, from tires to lighting, potentially new racks for the tables and chairs, definitely new tires for removing the stuff from the trailer. It's going to be a lift, but I think that it's not one that we're not willing to take over, for sure. I also think one of the hardest parts of managing this program is accountability on who checked them out previously. Volunteers show up, they get put away before they've even been washed, and so if we can create a nice little checklist that really holds people accountable, and then park the trailers somewhere where a staff or a volunteer can make sure that everything was returned as stated in the agreement from whomever checked it out.
Sounds like a plan to me. I know Arlington purchased their own because they felt like those were getting, not only were they hard to get sometimes, but they were getting in pretty rough shape. So
Mm-hmm.
your 4,000 is not going to go far, Caitlin.
But at least it's 4,000. You didn't have to go towards that. So yeah, I think this is a good plan.
Okay.
To transfer the responsibility and to distribute the funds.
One of the questions I had, Court, is will the county retain the insurance on the trailer, or will everything essentially go to the responsibility of the chamber?
Commissioners, thoughts? The insurance has already been paid this year.
Is it in a package with all of our insurance? So that, I mean, I would assume if the chamber went out, they'd probably be more expensive for the insurance form rather than packaging with the county. I don't know that.
Yeah, I think I would have to look, but we just paid the insurance bill, and I think it was, I want to say maybe $100.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't just leave it alone even there. We're just.
Great. That would be my only request, is that we're not having to take on any additional expenses in facilitating this program initially, that you guys could help us just kind of in this transitionary period.
And then, I don't have a problem with that.
One thing I want to make clear as well, Commissioners, what are your thoughts on it? This has always been a free program that the county has subsidized with our budget in terms of, having money in for replacements. Would you like it to continue to be that way, or are you comfortable with the chamber if they were to do a nominal fee, say $25, $50 to rent it? In order to sort of build that replacement fund? What are your thoughts on that? Would you prefer to have that be something that we just continue to keep in the budget and Kaylin comes to us if they need money to replace, or charging a nominal fee? What do you think?
I almost think they just need to be available for the community, and then that request needs to be made. When that program went together initially, it was going to be something for the community that they were doing. And I don't know at $50 if you run people off or not, but why would we?
Okay.
So how do we support Arlington Chamber in their endeavor in the same manner?
Well, their 4,000 is going there too. They're getting 4,000 too.
Yeah. So what we could do is we could just decide continually, if we wanted to, that we'll just leave that budget line item in place and maybe make it available to both chambers when they have a need to do replacement. That is the fund that's budgeted for that. And they would just need to submit a letter or come talk to us basically and ask for allocation.
Yeah, I'd like to make it perfectly clear that if, there's money in the budget, that it should support both chambers and their needs for the tables and chairs.
Okay, so what I can do, if I can get a motion on, and there's some motion language in that, what we can do is for this year, we can split what's in the budget. Again, I think we've spent just a little bit so far for the insurance out of that line item. And then I'll make sure when we do budget next year that we keep allocation in there and that we reach out to both chambers so that they know that if they have a need for replacement parts, that the county has some funds available and would like to contribute.
I think it's important to remember that stuff like this and the events that happen are all part of bringing people into the community that spend money and help, in event type economic enhancement, maybe for a day or two or a weekend, and that's what we want to have happen.
Yeah, agreed.
Yes. I hear you.
Again and again.
And over and over.
So could I get a motion on the transferring and the budgeted funds thing so that we can cut checks for the chambers, I should say, both of them?
I move to approve transferring the management of the Ford Leadership Tables and Chairs to the Condon Chamber of Commerce and to authorize the budgeted funds in the Ford Foundation projects line item to be split evenly and dispersed to the Condon and Arlington Chambers of Commerce to fund tables and chairs expenditures.
Pat, you're muted. Did you second?
So the $8,000 amount that was in there and the insurance has been taken out, I realize it's only $100. Arlington still has to buy insurance for their trailer. Are we splitting in the 8,000 or are we splitting what's left in the account?
I think we'd split what's left in the account.
So the Arlington Chamber has to buy the insurance and the Condon Chamber didn't. Just asking.
No,
just asking out of fairness here.
That's a good question.
I don't know how to make it more fair, though, to be honest. I think Arlington is.
Well, what was the initial amount before the insurance would be fair, I think.
Was 8,000.
Yeah, I would think 4,000 to Arlington. They're doing
And
my understanding was that they're doing their own insurance.
Okay.
That discussion's been out there, and they're trying to figure out how to do that.
Okay, so it sounds like Pat is proposing an amended, rather than splitting it evenly, that it would be 4,000 to the Arlington Chamber and the remainder to Condon.
Yes.
Did I capture that?
Yes.
So
I am in agreement with that. Thank you.
Okay, and Pat, you're seconding?
I second.
Okay, I'm trying to catch this in the revised amendment. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded that we approve transferring the management of the Ford Leadership Tables and Chairs to the Condon Chamber of Commerce and to authorize the budgeted funds in the Ford Foundation projects line item to be dispersed 4,000 to the Arlington Chambers of Commerce and the remainder to the Condon Chamber of Commerce to fund the tables and chairs expenditures. Is there further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. All right. Got that one. Okay. I will work on getting, checks cut to everybody. Okay. Let's move on to announcements and next meeting. I'll start with the meetings and then we'll go into announcements. Our next regular meeting is going to be October 6th. TBD on whether that is in person or in Zoom. I'm hoping by then we'll be back in person. So let's see how that goes. Also wanted to flag for folks that we are in the process of scheduling a work session tentatively for September 29th at 4 p.m. This will be held in Arlington. We're still confirming a location, but probably the fire hall. And it will be to discuss public health. So specifically, we'll have the folks who are working on the feasibility study to come and give us an overview update on what they have found, and to start the discussion with both of the boards from the both health districts to see if this is the direction that we would like to go in, which is to bring public health back to Gilliam County. So for those who are interested in this, members of the public, this is the space you need to be engaged in. I'm just going to put this bluntly. This is a significant change and you need to pay attention to this. Don't come in at the 11th hour is what I'm telling you. Be part of the discussion on the 29th. So if I can't be any more clear, this is important. Pay attention to it. And then the other thing we're working on is scheduling that Tri-County Court meeting that we discussed several meetings back. We're looking at October 13th. I think Teresa's still waiting to hear back from the commissioners in some of the other counties. But we're hoping that that will work for everybody. And the plan would be to have it at the beautiful office of the Condon Chamber in Condon. And that would also, frankly, be an opportunity for us to pitch to our neighboring counties on why they might want to consider doing a small business grant program as well, and supporting the chamber so they can do that region-wide. With that, I will go kick it over to Sherry. What do you got going on?
Norcor tomorrow, we are still in a Zoom platform. So if anyone's interested in that, it begins at 10 a.m. and all the materials are on the Norcor website. There's nothing big happening. We're just doing our regular monthly business. Capco is on the 24th at 11 a.m. and that also is in the Zoom platform. If anyone's interested in that. I have been in some discussions with business about the grain lab for leasing the building and the equipment. So that's an ongoing thing that I've been working on, and we'll continue this afternoon on that. Also working on with council on the MOU with Waste Management for the property for the well at Shuttler Station. I have some of these district, the AOC district meeting on my calendar. We'll wait and see what happens with that. And then, of course, the Eastern Oregon Economic Summit has been scheduled for the first week in October, and we'll see how that goes. So I think that's what I'm up to.
You're busy.
I like to be busy sometimes. Sometimes not much.
Pat, what do you got going on?
Meeting with Jared Cooley from Brookfield this afternoon. They're in and Mobin in, and he's asked for a meeting. So meeting with him this afternoon. Probably try to go to the port meeting. I'm not sure how that's going to work out this afternoon. County College final session Thursday and Friday. And other than that, it's been kind of a personal week opening, or personal couple 3 weeks opening a new business, and it's been a little hectic and crazy for me, but we're starting to smooth out, and hopefully I'll be back on top of things a little better.
So are you up and running, or when's your opening?
We opened 2 weeks ago Friday, kind of gradually and softly. We're struggling with employees. We just don't have enough. Having to shut the pheasant down a little bit to keep the new one going. And so it's just an ongoing battle. I know that a lot of the unemployment incentives have fallen off, and I'm hoping some people will come out of the woodwork that need a little income. But yeah, it's this whole employee issue is just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. Yeah, we'll do a grand opening sometime, probably later in October.
Great. Cool. Well, good luck. Okay, as for me, Catherine had mentioned at the top of the meeting an update on IGA for fire services. My understanding is the parties have reached an agreement. And so Gary and I had a conversation with our attorney on Monday, and we are told that we will have the final documents by close of business on Monday. He promised Gary, Catherine. So if you don't have them by then, we're going to set Gary loose on the attorney to get us the documents. So my hope is that we'll have it on our agenda, probably the second meeting in October. And with the final reading, it's an ordinance, so it's going to be a two reading thing to enact it. Does that work for you, Catherine?
Yeah, I just need to, according to our charter, we just have to make sure the counselors get it a week in advance. Now, I'm not sure, do we have to post this? Are you guys doing a hearing, or is it just as far as I know, I think we just have to get it to the council and put it on as the first reading.
Yeah, so what our attorney said for our process is that it's not a hearing, but that for us, it has to be posted at least a week in advance. So
we'll check with ours too. So, because it'll take 2 readings, and since there's not an emergency clause, we'll have the first reading in October, the second reading in November, and then it goes into effect 30 days. But we will technically say it goes into effect the first of the year.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Gary and I pressed him. Gary pressed him multiple times saying, no, really, the cities need this. And he promised it. So if we don't have it by close of business on Monday, Gary will be calling.
Okay. I appreciate that. That's also, I'm guessing, to the IGA. So
yes.
All good. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
I got one question for Sherry, Commissioner Wilkins, dear.
Yes, Commissioner Shannon.
Have you been in contact, I think his name's David Schloop, at all about the lab, or is that somebody that you've been working with for a while?
That name is not familiar with me.
I gave him your contact information, but I haven't had a chance to follow up with him. I know that they have a company they're wanting to expand, and extremely interested in coming to Gilliam County. They're interested in the lab, but they also need some warehousing, but they were looking for some property they could buy and build their own warehousing. And so I've talked to the city about that, but I will get that hooked up too in case your other deal doesn't work. But they were real interested in the lab, had looked at it a couple of years ago, and their business is in position now to make the move. And they do a peat moss fertilizer type product, and Scott's Fertilizer is their biggest customer, so it's a pretty big deal. They're down the valley. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. EDA is still in the picture for us, so it would have to be something agricultural. So
it is.
It is.
Perfect.
It is.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is. I'll get that to you today. So, you know,
Okay.
they are under a time crunch, and they have one other location they're looking at down in Tualatin, but they would a lot rather come to Gilliam County. So.
All right.
So other things that are going on, just to put it on your radar, I did meet with our fiber consultant. He is moving forward on the project. So right now he is connecting with our assessor and SWCB to get a lay of the land in terms of what mapping assets we already have. So I think once he has those initial discussions, we're going to schedule a kickoff meeting with all of our partners. So our local providers will be invited to come to the table, and he will be in contact with them to kind of see what are current plans. Again, I always want to reiterate, the intent is not to compete with our local folks, it's to fill the gaps. So that's what he'll be trying to identify, is where those gaps are. The other thing that came up that I would like some direction on, when the compensation committee met in the springtime, one of the things they requested was a salary survey of the elected officials. And I would like some direction from the court on how we want to proceed with that. Would you like Lisa and I to go out and sort of figure out what it would cost to hire somebody to do that? Originally, we had thrown out that this is kind of in Lisa's wheelhouse, and that it might be, we could just do it internally. And the committee was lukewarm on, they wanted an outside opinion. So I wanted to get your take on how to proceed. Would you like me to bring back some cost estimates to see what we're talking about? Or see if maybe some of the compensation committee members could join us at one of our meetings to kind of talk about what they're hoping for. How would you like to proceed?
I think it's important to listen to people that are willing to serve at a community level and figure out what they want and see what we can do to get it for them.
Yeah, I think it's a good exercise. It's one that I know we did for the road department to see where we lined up with other counties in our areas. So yeah, if they want us to do it independently and they're interested in that, I guess maybe we do need to hear from them. What are they thinking? What's their request?
Okay. So what I can do maybe is I will see if we can get them to come to our next meeting, at least some of them, and talk about what they talked about during the actual compensation board and get some more clarity. And then from there, we can figure out who potentially could perform the work that they're requesting. If that sounds good, we'll get them on the next agenda.
Sounds good.
And Sherry, I have forwarded you an email from David Shoup too, so you should have it.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Other than that, I've got an Eastern Oregon Regional Solutions Advisory Committee meeting this afternoon. It starts at 1 for anybody interested. I also am going to be attending next week. The MCED Board of Directors is meeting on Thursday, the 23rd. And Jessica Mehta had asked me to come to continue the discussion about switching development districts. So this is the next conversation with the board to gauge whether they're open to accepting us. Let me see what else I've got that's coming up. We have a very brief lipstick meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning to approve something, and then AOC meetings that Sherry had referenced. The district meeting is coming up on the 30th. And I think that is it. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Commissioners, anything? If
I don't
not,
have anything.
Nope, I'm
it
good.
is 11:56, and I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting.